Francis Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby has been viewed as a standout masterpiece of American writing since it was published. The novel has been distinctly consecrated in American culture, where it remains applicable and regularly read over 90 years after publication. The Great Gatsby was written during the age of jazz or the Roaring Twenties. The classical story vividly portrays post-war America, jazz music, free-flowing illegal liquor, and most importantly, the pessimistic examination of the American dream. Why it is still relevant turns out to be clear when reading the novel. The Great Gatsby tells the story of Jay Gatsby, a self-made millionaire, and the continuous pursuit of Daisy Buchanan, a woman who he loved during his youth. Fitzgerald tells a moderately contained and straightforward story by using an elaborate style and concerning different distinctive topics. Although the main plot is simplified, it encapsulates thought-provoking themes ranging from appearance versus reality, social inequality, and yearning to relive the past. In addition, it leaves plenty of space for alternative views and speculations about some elements of the novel. The narrator, Nick Carraway, moves to Long Island after returning from World War I. Although he is from Minnesota, he feels restless after the war and believes that the East Coast is more interesting and exciting than the Midwest. After he relocates to the fictional town of West Egg and begins his job as a bond salesman, Nick becomes reacquainted with a distant cousin, Daisy, and her husband, Tom Buchanan. Both are from very wealthy families, and Tom is a successful businessman. Nick also meets their friend, Jordan Baker, a professional female golfer. Tom and Daisy live in East Egg, the more prestigious old money counterpart to West Egg, where people with new money live. Tom also has a mistress, Myrtle Wilson, the wife of a gas station and car dealership owner named George. One night, Nick meets Jay Gatsby, his neighbor. Although Gatsby is extremely rich and holds lavish parties at his home, he has few close friends. He invites Nick to one of his parties, and they become acquainted. Jordan approaches Nick to inform him that Gatsby and Daisy were once romantically involved and asks Nick's assistance in facilitating a reunion. Gatsby and Daisy begin an affair, which soon becomes apparent to Tom. He despises Gatsby and informs Daisy that Gatsby is a criminal. This is true. Gatsby is not from a family with money but is instead a self-made alcohol smuggler from a modest Midwestern family. After the revelation, Daisy and Gatsby drive away, and Daisy runs over Myrtle by accident. The two do not stop the car, and later Tom convinces a distraught George that Gatsby drove the car. George pursues Gatsby, murders him, then commits suicide. None of Gatsby's party guests, nor any of his criminal associates, attend his funeral. Disillusioned, Nick makes up his mind to return to the Midwest. The deeper themes and social distinctions observed by the protagonist Nick Carraway in F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby make the story one of America's most iconic novels, revealing the extravagance and profligacy of the wealthy in a pre-Great Depression New York City. The distinction between social classes experienced by Nick throughout the novel are a product of institutional powers whose effects are represented in the social relations of the text. Through his opinions of various characters and his interactions with them, Nick slowly undergoes a change from a stance of moral ambiguity to one of principled clarity. The novel is developed through Nick's reflections, insights, and social interactions with Tom, Daisy, Jordan, and Gatsby, and each of these characters' varying statuses and respective influences of institutional power develop Carraway's opinions and decisions as he attempts to understand the convoluted society of the wealthy. Nick's gradual change in morality and views of the upper-class society can be seen through his careful and honest observations of other characters throughout the novel. An alluring point about The Great Gatsby book is the idea of love. From the simplified plot, one could imagine that love revolves around Jay Gatsby trying to win over the girl of his dreams. While, on the surface, the love Jay Gatsby had for Daisy Buchanan could be described as an obsession, something somewhat impure. Regardless of the wealth and riches made through gambling and bootlegging, his life still has dissatisfaction. The author uses Daisy to represent the past. By portraying Daisy as Jay's love interest, a woman he could not get before, we observe the same optimistic view towards life. Irrespective of her being married, he still views her as an object, hoping that he can get the girl if he tries hard enough. This belief guided his actions towards the whole novel, like buying a mansion just to see the girl. Fitzgerald dissects the society clinically by exposing the decline of conventional values like loyalty and responsibility. The apparently polished upper-class gentry like Tom and Daisy indulge in amorous affairs only to satisfy their whims. The only glimpse of innocence in the novel is seen in Nick and Gatsby. Nick realizes how Daisy and Tom are betraying Gatsby and stays beside Gatsby till the end. While Gatsby follows an innocent dream of idealistic love, Nick falls for the middle-class morality and arranges for Gatsby's funeral alone. Weaved with the themes of love and time are the themes of hope and isolation. When Gatsby returns as a phenomenon in Long Island, Daisy quickly realizes that Gatsby can save her from Tom's lascivious and robust frailties. Daisy hopes for a quick and selfish fulfillment in the arms of her former lover. She aligns herself with Gatsby but never gives in fully. Gatsby lives in a fool's paradise and in turn, hopes for a consummate reunion between him and Daisy. He invites Daisy to Nick's house for tea and is nervous to meet his former lover. Gatsby follows Daisy's trail under the false assumption that Daisy will eventually leave Tom. In Tom's house, Daisy feels stifled and isolated as her emotional needs are unquenched. Gatsby, on the other hand, is isolated by his infamous rise in the world and lives as a shadow in his own palace. The difference between Gatsby and Daisy is that of character. While Daisy is narcissistic, shallow and selfish, Gatsby is selfless, innocent and idealistic. The Great Gatsby is a story that ranges from pure lyrical beauty to sheer brutal realism. The hard facts of power and economics play out against the mythological promises of fantasy and ideology. Gatsby learns the hard way that being found out is inevitable, escape from his past is impossible, but Nick beats a retreat back home, escaping back into his own nostalgic past. We find ourselves surveying the waste and wreckage after the party ends, but ready to carouse some more. The Great Gatsby is a fable about betrayal, of others, and of our own ideals. The concept that a new world in America is even possible, that it won't simply reproduce the follies and vices of the old world, is already an illusion, a paradise lost before it has even been conceived. By the time Gatsby tries to force that world to fulfill its promise, the dream is long gone. But that doesn't stop him from chasing the green light of wealth and status, the dangled promise of power that can only create a corrupt plutocracy shored up by vast social inequality. If that sounds familiar, it should. Our Gilded Age bears a marked resemblance to Fitzgerald's. It has become a truism that Fitzgerald was dazzled by wealth, but the charge infuriated him. Riches have never fascinated me, unless combined with the greatest charm or distinction, he insisted, adding later, I have never been able to forgive the rich for being rich, and it has colored my entire life and works. He wasn't enthralled to wealth, but making a study of how it was corrupting the country he loved. The materialistic world of Gatsby is defined by social politics in a metropolitan America. It is a story of class warfare in a nation that denies it even has a class system, in which the game is eternally rigged for the rich to win. In fact, as a young man Fitzgerald described himself as a socialist, and in the 1930s, like almost all writers of his era, he became interested in communism, although he was soon unimpressed. And it is certainly true that if Fitzgerald was a socialist, he was the original champagne socialist. In the unforgettable closing passage of The Great Gatsby, Fitzgerald makes it clear that if his story is about America, it is also a universal tale of human aspiration. Nick Carraway wanders to the shore at the edge of the continent and imagines Dutch sailors seeing America for the first time. Its vanished trees, the trees that had made way for Gatsby's house, had once pandered in whispers to the last and greatest of all human dreams. For a transitory enchanted moment man must have held his breath in the presence of this continent, compelled into an aesthetic contemplation he neither understood nor desired, face to face for the last time in history with something commensurate to his capacity for wonder. In The Great Gatsby, Fitzgerald offers up commentary on a variety of themes: justice, power, greed, betrayal, the American dream, and so on. Of all the themes, perhaps none is more well developed than that of social stratification. Fitzgerald carefully sets up his novel into distinct social groups but, in the end, each group has its own problems to contend with, leaving a powerful reminder of what a precarious place the world really is. By creating distinct social classes, old money, new money, and no money, Fitzgerald sends strong messages about the elitism running throughout every strata of society. Considered among one of the best American novels, The Great Gatsby is like a moving picture of the erstwhile American society centered on a tender story of love, passion, and betrayal.